It's the weekend, and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to Jill on Money. It is a momentous weekend. We are springing forward. Don't forget to change your clocks. I guess this means we get a little more daylight in the morning, so that's nice for people who wake up early and in the dark anyway. It'll still be dark when I wake up. Mark, you too. But for the rest of you, enjoy it. It's wonderful. Lots of spring stuff that will be in the air, springing forward. I think the first day of spring's not for another 10 days. The 20th, 22nd, somewhere around there. 21st, there you go. How do you know that, Mark? Okay. It's one of the weird things that he knows, so he says. We are delighted to have you here with us. It's going to be a great show because we are springing forward ourselves. And the first exciting spring news that we have for you is our newsletter, our weekly newsletter that Mark compiles. If you would like to subscribe to it, go to jillonmoney.com. How are we doing in subscriptions, Mark? We did sort of a soft launch. What do we got? That's the same as last week. That's not impressing me at all. All right. So we're adding about 100 a week right now. And I said to Mark that I wanted 5,000 by the end of the year. He wants 1,000. I want 5,000. And then you can send us stuff to put in the newsletter, like stuff that you think is cool that Mark needs to know about. If you have a financial question, if you have anything on your mind that is remotely associated with a dollar sign, we want to hear from you. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That is our email address. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. And that will get you in touch with us. And if you read something cool, or you think it's something that we need to, essentially have some sort of, update on something cool, send it to us. We want to know about it. It doesn't have to be for, we don't have to just use the stuff that we create. We want other people's great creations too. Okay? And today is also going to be our big tax prep day. So special guest Ed Slott, you've probably seen him on PBS before. He's amazing. He'll be here in the second hour to help us understand what we need to know about tax season this year, what has changed, what's the same, and how you might be able to prepare for the next tax year. That's when things are going to go all kaflooey. But first, let's take a call. It is Bruce, who's on the line from Illinois. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to Jill on Money. What can I do for you?
Hi, Jill. What an honor to speak to you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Hey, so my question is, if money buys you freedom and money buys you options, what point, where's the tipping point? When can you kind of just walk away from what you have to do and you can start doing what you want to do?
Well, I think that point comes after you've actually run through your retirement planning scenario. So what you've probably heard me do on the show when I talk about that, money buys you options and give you that whole song and dance, what you likely hear me do is say to somebody, start with, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me how much money you've saved. Tell me what kind of income you're going to have in retirement. Tell me what you need in terms of your retirement income goals going forward. And so we work backwards. We do that, and then we work backwards, and we say, okay, let's see where you are. So let's do that for you. How about that? Tell me how old you are.
I'm 52. My wife's 53.
Okay. And tell me about what's going on and see if we can find you some financial freedom.
Well, okay, so between Roths and 401ks and those type of things, we have about 1.4 put away, 1.4 million.
Great.
Depends what comes out of Washington.
Yes, on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. So I just figured it out last night. We were at 1.3.5 maybe, and I've got two pensions lined up. My wife's got one pension lined up when we finally pull the plug. I would like to semi-retire and go into something different as soon as possible because I really am not happy where I'm working.
Okay.
The commute's killing me, that kind of thing. It's just creating undue stress in our relationship.
Yeah.
And so I'm really at that tipping point where I really want to walk away from what I'm doing, continue working in the industry that I'm in, but not who I'm working for.
Got it. So you've got a bunch of money saved already, and you say you're going to have pensions. So tell me about, first let's do the pensions. How much will you receive and at what age?
Okay, so I have a military pension sitting out there that I can start receiving at age 60. Mm-hmm. That's going to be about $1,000 to $1,100 a month.
Okay.
And then I have another pension that I'll start receiving. I can start receiving as early as 55. And if I walk away now from it, that's what I'm working at now, I'd only get about $1,000. If I walk away at 55, I'd get about $1,200. If I work till 58, I'd get about $1,800.
But if, again, between the two pensions, if you just wanted them right this second and you said, I'm done, you'd have $2,000 a month coming in between the two, correct?
Roughly, yeah. And my wife would have, when she finally retires, she'll have about, she had a pension that was frozen, but we don't know exactly how much, but we guess about $1,200 a month.
Okay.
She'll get from that.
Okay. So how much do you guys need to live on?
Not a lot. We have no debt whatsoever. Zero.
I love that. So, but you obviously have to live. What do you want to live on?
Well, what we make is about $100 between the two of us.
Uh-huh.
And we probably try to put away the max that we can of that. We probably try to put away about 35 to 40% of that after taxes.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty darn good. So what do you figure? You think you need like $4,000 a month just for real, just to live your life and have fun? 5?
Well, we do. The one luxury we do have is we like to travel a couple times a year.
All right.
So we figured, maybe, you don't have a house payment. It makes everything so different.
Sure.
And so, we can, $2,000 a month we can get by on. But my wife's not looking to retire. She's not looking to vacate change course.
Okay.
So.
Well, it sounds like you're in great shape then. So what's the big deal? So if you want to, you're going to have this money. You don't have a big lifestyle. You want to leave your current job, but you want to have but you would be willing to work.
Right.
So
right.
What's the downside here? Except that obviously, a pension's a guarantee and you would earn more money. But why not just, let's do this. Let's go to a break. We're going to come back. Because I want to talk a little bit more about this. So my inclination is that you're in really good shape, Bruce, because you're going to have the money if you wanted to. Just from your two pensions, that you would have about $2,000 a month. You would continue to work. Basically, with your pensions and your work, you could cover your needs, and then your wife is the extra, the sort of like an extra amount of money coming in, so it doesn't sound like your life would change. So when we come back from the break, we're going to find out from Bruce what's the downside of him leaving right now. What does he lose besides the accretion of that pension benefit? Do you like that word, Mark? Accretion. That's pretty good, meaning it's building up. You're listening to Jill on Money. Send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Follow us on Twitter at JillOnMoney.com and go get our newsletter. Just hop onto the website, JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone number is 855-411-JILL, but the better way to get in touch with us these days is email. Wouldn't you say, Mark? I think so. Email's probably better. Just shoot us a note. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. When you write us, give us some background, because it will help us figure out which show you might be able to come and appear on. Sometimes we have themes, sometimes we don't, but just give us some background. It's helpful, okay? Jill is ready to rock and roll with Bruce. Bruce, you still there?
I am.
All right, Bruce is from Illinois. If you're just joining us, he's in his early 50s, and he wants to know when he gets a hall pass to go to the bathroom. No, he wants to know If you're really basically at the moment where you can choose to do something else, right? Because you're working now, you don't love what you do anymore, but you would be able to work in the future. You've got a couple of pensions, which is obviously so helpful. And in addition, you've got this money that's sitting in all of your accounts, Roths and IRAs and savings. You said about $1.4 million, and then roughly speaking, that would generate 40 grand a year, just that. So what are you worried about? I mean, I think you probably know these numbers. You're looking at these numbers. You've got pensions. You would be willing to work. What is it that is holding you back from making a different choice going forward?
That's a great question because it's because of the industry that I'm in. I can change industries, but the one that I've been in for the last 15 years roughly, is I really have to be near corporate headquarters or agency level headquarters. And where I live currently, there really isn't any. I commute, roughly 2.5 hours a day to go to my work, and so I have to go that distance to be at that kind of place. So if I changed where I work, I'd have to actually relocate probably. And the problem is my wife's parents are getting older. They're in their 90s. And we live near them so she can keep an eye on them and help them and take care of them. And so for me to stay in my industry, either my commute would be much, worse, or we'd have to relocate and she could only see her parents, not as much as she does now.
So that means that you really don't have a choice. What you're saying to me, what I'm hearing from you is, if you were going to call it quits from your current job, you would never be able to stay in your current career and make as much money. Could you do something else? I mean, I hate to say this because it sounds terrible, but could you do something else until they pass away?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. So, I mean, I've had 4 or 5 career shifts, so it's not a big deal for me. It's just that. That stepping away from a job that has good benefits, just a real toxic environment,
Yeah, but I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that you're you're like bummed out about this, and you're in a bad place. And your wife has a job. How does she feel about her job? I mean, can you get benefits from her?
Yes, I can get benefits from her. Obviously, it costs twice as much than what we're paying now, but
but. So, like you said, you have very low expenses. I mean, it stinks. I don't want you to have to pay. I guess that, all right, so here's the bottom line, I think, is that this does not sound like a financial decision in a lot of ways. It sounds like a life decision that's freaking you out. And I get that it's freaking you out because life decisions are so scary. And so I think at some point you have to decide how much you feel comfortable enduring, whether it's the commute or the job you really don't like. I'll just say this on your behalf because Bruce in his email to us wrote that he had a soul-sucking job, which makes me – and you know what? I get that. We've all had those moments in our lives where we know it's just not right. And by the way, Mark and I were just talking about this because we were talking about a former boss or colleague that he had who he basically said to me, that is essentially why I left, because of that person. Because that person, although he was happy in the job he was doing, but that person made his life so unbearable and that he literally would have stomach aches going into work because he could not stand the environment. And that pushed him to make a different decision. Now, okay, he was a lot younger. He wasn't married. He had no kids. It was a lot easier to make that choice at that point in his life. But in your case, I guess I'm wondering just, what it's going to take to make you move forward. I think that you probably have plenty of money to do what you are doing. And, if you really feel trapped, are you creating that trap for yourself? I don't think that it's the financial thing. I think you're creating that. So can you give yourself permission? Could you even take a sabbatical and see how, maybe you can say, gosh, I really need to take a sabbatical and see what 6 months looks like? How do you feel about that?
I love the idea. I just got to tell my wife on it.
Why? She's like, keep working, dummy.
Well, it's a relationship, and whatever I do affects her, and vice versa.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you other advice that has nothing to do with financial stuff. I think your financial stuff is fine. You've done a great job you've done a really good job of saving. Okay, obviously, every day, every week, every month that you remain in your soul-sucking job, it actually inures to your benefit because your pension will keep getting bigger. So that's number one. I think there's two choices for you guys. One is that you actually go to a financial planner, sit down with your wife, pay, $1,000 to have somebody, spend a few hours with you, build out this retirement plan and prove to your wife that you guys would be fine financially. That's one thing. And the other thing is that person may be able to show her, because again, it's an unbiased third party. That to me is what you need to do. You can't be convincing her. She doesn't want to hear it from you, obviously. So you're going to have to seek the assistance of someone else to get her, to bring her along. And if that doesn't work, you know what? Maybe you go to a shrink. But I actually think the financial advisor is going to be better. Mark, don't you think so? That like a good CFP who's skilled with the sort of like helping them through this could get them to a different place. It's really that's what I think you need.
Okay. All right. Great.
All right. So either that or you'll play. Mark is going to send this call to you so you have it and you can play it to her. She's going to hate me. She can write me. Maybe we'll bring you both on and we'll do like a split screen cable thing where you can go back and forth. No, I mean, but I think you guys have done a terrific job of saving. That is really you have purchased your lottery ticket, meaning that you've basically saved a ton of money. You've worked really hard and you now have opportunities to make different choices. And my hope for you and your wife is that you see these choices and that you take advantage of them, because why do it? Why work so hard and be in this soul-sucking job if you weren't able to make this choice? And, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who did it in reverse, which is she took like her passion job for a while and she did it for like 15 years. And then she decided, you know what? Now I actually have to pay for tuition and now I have to take a soul-sucking, horrible corporate law job and I'm going to do it. And she did it. But she always said, but I made the choice to have like the fun, exciting, great job first. And I knew I was always going to have to kind of sell out to the man later. You did it in reverse. So let's just get your wife on board. I think she'll, I don't know. I feel like she's going to do it. I think she is. I have faith in her and I have faith in you. So Bruce, thank you so much for calling. And I really wish you the very best of luck. If you're listening and you want to know how you can buy choices and have great opportunities, you do it by working hard, saving, doing the right thing for yourself, avoiding potholes along the way, and then maybe you too can have these choices. But it does require that you do the hard work and put money away. And this is not just having a job with a pension. Bruce and his wife have $1.4 million saved, and they're in their early 50s. All right. If you want a little double check on your retirement plan, want to know where your lottery ticket is, give us a holler. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. When we return, more of your questions. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle at JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money. I'm Jill Schlesinger. Mark is producing, as always, producing tremendous content, Mark. I see that you're dressed down today. I'm going to change. I'm going to go do a quick TV hit, and then I'm going to go change. I know it's really warm on this day that we are recording this in New York. Okay, Sharif asks, great article about inflation. Mark, I guess we'll have to make sure that we put that in this particular response. Do you think investing in mutual funds through insurance companies is a good way to fight inflation? Kind regards. No. In fact, I think the what you can say about investing in in mutual funds through insurance companies is a great way to get your insurance agent a little bit extra money. I don't know why people use insurance companies for anything other than insurance. Insurance is amazing. It's fantastic. But it all of a sudden becomes conflated with all these other things, investments. So in general, I like to buy insurance for insurance, and I like to buy investments as investments, and never the twain shall meet. In fact, here is an email from, who is this? Peter, who is asking, I have a certified financial advisor who adheres to the fiduciary standard, who is recommending Jefferson National Variable Annuity because of its low fees. I realize you don't know my financial situation. I'm 68, retired. I have IRAs that I'll need to start liquidating at age 70 and a half. I don't have any dependents except a sister. This advisor suggested a variable annuity, but I've only heard bad things about variable annuities. This person said that it was different. Do you know anything about Jefferson National? I don't know about this particular product, but here's what I know. I don't understand why this is. See now, Mark, you hear how I'm getting completely wound up about this. So, my guess is that your certified financial planner, I guess your CFP, if he's a CFP and he's recommending a variable annuity, I guess the big question is, well, what are the alternatives? Why should I invest in a variable annuity, even one that has low fees? Why not just and why not just invest in an index fund? And if you've got IRAs that you're going to have to start to use, then why actually put a variable annuity wrapper on this stuff when you know you got to access it? So I don't know. Is this person actually a certified financial planner, a CFP? You say he adheres to the fiduciary standard. Well, then have him put in writing what your alternatives are. Say, hey, you know what? I get your advice. Thank you. Please explain to me, please compare the variable annuity with just buying index funds. Oh, and by the way, how are you actually being compensated for this Jefferson National variable annuity? Maybe you should figure out what your alternatives are and how they compare, and then we can make a better decision. Okay. Doesn't sound like a CFP, but could be. You never know. Here is Stuart. I enjoy your podcast and insightful articles. Mm. It's amazing. If you only knew that I wrote those at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's a great insight from 4 to 6 a.m. And then it sort of passes through the zone of exhaustion on a Saturday or Sunday, as Mark likes to remind me. Anyway, I mentioned to my financial advisor that I wanted to slightly lower my exposure to stocks, currently at 67%, since I'm getting close to retirement age. She suggested investing in structured notes that would be tied to an index like a mid-cap index. Bah! This is like my segment of I'm just so unhappy. Oh, God. Why these people have to make your life so freaking complicated. How about this? Okay? How about she moves some of the money from stocks into bonds? Oh, or even some of the money from stocks into cash. Oh, I wonder how much the structured notes cost. I wonder how much she makes from that advice. Come on. These so-called financial professionals, why do you have to make it so hard? Is it do you think you are smarter than everyone else? Do you think that I don't know. I don't know anything about you, Stuart, but I'm going to tell you something. I think that structured notes are complicated and usually expensive and unnecessary. So I'd love to know more about your situation. Follow up with me, and maybe we'll get you on the air and you can tell us more about your portfolio and what's going on inside. And we can come up with a really easy game plan. So often, the advice that you get is this self-serving claptrap, and that's what makes me insane. We don't need this. What we need is ease, simplicity. Sometimes the easiest and simplest solution is actually the best one. I keep thinking about this Warren Buffett bet that he made with this dude who is like the fund of funds, the hedge fund guy. And he makes this $1 million bet, which essentially was Warren Buffett saying, I'll bet you that an index fund will beat your fund of funds. And by the way, if your hedge funds were so awesome, they were so great, this bet started in 2007. And, one might believe that in a washout like we had in 2008 and 2009, a hedge fund person who had all the information in the world and the best research possible could easily beat the index, which is just this passive basket of stuff. Remarkably, over the 10-year period, the index fund, 7.1% annualized return, and the hedge fund's 2.2% annualized return. Bully for you all who make it all so complicated. It ain't. You know what would be better? Instead of trying to find the structured note of the world, the variable annuity of the world, the hedge fund of the world, you actually started paying attention to the things in your financial life you can control. Like, do you have enough life insurance? Have you completed your estate plan? Have you actually looked at your corporate benefits and seen whether you can use them more wisely? Are you using the right kind of 529 plan? Do you have a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, or you still got a variable mortgage? How about that? All right. I'm going to be happier in the next segment. Jill on Money, 855-411-JILL. Send an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, she's all over the place. Go to jillonmoney.com to find it all. Now back to the show with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Richard writes, we made a decision to take 10% out of our $115,000 TIAA CREF account in our TIAA side and put it into our stock accounts. So here's the deal. When you have TIAA CREF and you're in the teacher's annuity side, TIAA, if you want to move stuff over to the CREF side, I think you have to do it over the course of 9 or 10 years. I think it's 10 years. So Richard took 10% of it and moved it over to the stock accounts. And instead of leaving it in a 4% annual account, thought we'd better have a better chance to make more money. Well, we'll see. Here's the beauty of TIAA. TIAA, that account, is a very, very high fixed account. So it's okay. I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all, but I really would want to know more about the rest of your financial life because TIAA has such a good, strong rate that I'd rather find, maybe something else in your financial life, maybe an old IRA or Roth that could be your stock position. But we'll see. You can send us more information. Kevin writes, would you be better off rolling money from a divorce into a traditional or a Roth IRA? Okay, so when you get divorced and there's a retirement account, there's something called a quadro, a qualified domestic relations order. And if you are getting that money through a quadro, it first has to go, because I'm presuming it's already pre-tax money, right? So that would go from a quadro into, say, your own IRA account. Then if you convert it into a Roth IRA, you have to pay the tax due on it. So this is an important distinction, which is, do you have the money to pay for the tax? If that money is available, might be worth it. If not, leave it as a traditional. Okay. Next email. This is from Jerry, who wants to know about a small retirement account. Right now, my small savings, about $34,000, is in 85% guaranteed, 6% real estate, 9% multi-asset. My personal rate of return for the last quarter was 1.1%. I start taking a distribution approximately 2 years from now. I really cannot risk losing anything at this point. What is your opinion? Thank you for any input you might have. You know what? If you can't lose, then you got to stay in the guaranteed account. That's the deal. I mean, you may, even if you had a tiny position in stocks, that can go up and can go down. So I think you know the answer to your question. If you say you absolutely cannot lose, then you're stuck with a low rate. Now, the good news for you is that interest rates are starting to rise. And so you should be able to start squeezing out some higher interest rates as we move forward into the higher interest rate world. But for that, got to wait, got to be patient. Don't be impatient because you know what? It'll come bite you in the tush. It really will. Try to just take your time, suck it up. Don't run into stocks because that is exactly where you're going to find some trouble. Okay, this next question comes from Rhonda, who is 60 years old, working and trying to save for retirement. She's saved in the last 6 years about $39,000. It's the only savings she has. Her employer matches 10%. I'm not very good with stocks and bonds. Any suggestions? Absolutely. Rhonda, maybe you've got some type of retirement account that has what's called a target date fund, meaning it targets the date that you would retire. And I'm not sure how long you're going to work, but let's say it's 5 or 10 more years. So if you've got a 2020 or a 2030 fund, that might be a good place to start. And if you've saved $39,000 in 6 years, that's pretty good. So keep going. You can send us a list of the funds that are available to you if you'd like, and we'll take a look at that. But, you are, I think, on the right track. But simplicity rules. That's the deal. Nothing more is necessary than just a simple way to save for retirement. And sometimes a target date fund will work. Sometimes you can just split it between a stock and a bond fund. Either way, you should be on your way now. So well done, Rhonda. Okay, this next one is from Patricia. Good morning, Jill. I'm 57 years old. I've been a waitress my entire life. I've never been able to figure out how to save for retirement. I know it's late in the game. Could you please give me any advice? I was married for 19 years. We always planned on living off my husband's retirement. He changed his mind, and now I'm on my own. All right. Patricia, you're going to open up a Roth IRA, and you're going to do that at a place that's really cheap, whether it's the sponsor of my podcast, Betterment, whether it's TD Ameritrade. You're going to open it up, and you're going to have money come directly out of your checking account, and it's going to happen seamlessly. And you're going to try to save $6,500 a year to do that. That's your goal. So make it monthly, however you need to do it, but go ahead and do it. Get going, get started, and we'll hold your hand if you want. Give us a holler if you need some help with that. Okay, you're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a question, give us a call, 855-411-JILL. We'll get you on the air live. Send us an email, ask Jill at Jill on Money. And check out JillOnMoney.com. That's our website. You can listen to past shows and get all the cool blog posts, TV segments, everything. Check it out, JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. Let's do a couple of emails here. In a recent Tribune article, you mentioned that, quote, you need $7,272 to buy what $1,000 could get 50 years ago. Explain in detail how you arrived at this. It is Mark, would you like to do that calculation? The little future value, present value, time value of money calculation. It's a very standard calculation, Lou, but if you want, there's actually an inflation calculator that you can find online. But essentially, that's just factoring in an inflation rate of somewhere around 3.5% over the last 50 years. So if you used $1,000 because of inflation, $1,000 50 years ago is over $7,000 today. Carol writes, I'm 83, my husband's 76 and still working because we need medical insurance. That's curious. I don't know. You could get Medicare, but that's weird. But maybe the employer pays for it, or maybe it's much better than Medicare. Medicare is available to everyone at 65, so that's why I'm wondering. Anyway, Carol says debts are low. They own their home and property. Credit rating is high. They only have about $9 to $12,000 in savings. They receive $50,000. They have a real need to be careful with it. Lost money in 2008. Can't do it again. Looking at CDs and using only savings accounts with little interest, but reasonably safe. Both have had cancer. How does husband ever retire? Ideas. Yeah, well, if you have $50,000 and you need it to be really safe, do exactly with what you are planning to do, which is please, please, please be sure to keep it safe. And even if interest rates are low, then just, buy some different kinds of CDs with different maturities. Maybe you do a 6-month, maybe you do a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year, 5 year, 6 year. And that's it. Nothing more than that. You have to be very careful is right. And I don't know. Again, I'm not sure about why you need to be working to carry medical insurance because you are entitled to Medicare, but maybe you can give us a call and we could find out. Okay. All right, stay tuned. We've got a great interview in hour number 2. It's Ed Slott. He is an IRA expert, but he's also a CPA. He's going to talk to us about tax season. Jill on Money. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Well, welcome to the program. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary, Mark. Do you know what we're celebrating? Which anniversary this is? I bet you don't. Happy 9th anniversary. Happy 9th anniversary bull market. Oh, I know you wanted to forget it. Friday, March 9th, that represented the 9-year anniversary of the bull market. Maybe you forgot where we were. As we sit here worrying about Gary Cohn leaving and whether we're in a correction or not. And, the Dow at 24, 25,000, the S&P at 26, 2,700, NASDAQ all the way up towards 7,000-ish. Okay. In the bad old days, on March 9th, 2009, Mark, you probably don't remember this. Well, you might, because that's probably when we met and you were at radio, meaning CBS, the radio network. The Dow Jones Industrial Average on March 9th, 2009 closed at 6547. I mean, that is astounding, right? Come on. In case you were wondering, that at the time was the lowest level since April of 1997. So March 2009, we kind of went in reverse to 1997. The S&P 500, that index finished at 676. Some people said, it actually touched 666. Unbelievable. That was the lowest since 1996 at the time. The NASDAQ was at 1278. Which at the time was the lowest level since October of 2002. All right, let's put this in perspective, guys. So we've had a 9-year bull run, second longest on record. The longest was the tech boom of the 90s. And I think that official bull market ran from December of 1987 until March of 2000, which means we would have to make it past June of 2021 to be the longest. Hey, who knows? Stranger things have happened. But anyway, I digress. Happy anniversary. And now on to your real life. We are so excited because once again, we have the fabulous Ed Slott, IRA expert and CPA. He's going to help navigate tax season with us. So stay tuned, buckle up. It's Taxes 2018. Here's our interview with Ed Slott. You look excited. You look caffeinated. I don't know, like you down in some Red Bulls or what's going on for you? This is your time, right?
No, a lot of tax changes. People have lots of questions, and it's great to be back here with you.
So let's just we're talking about 2017.
Right.
No new tax law impact yet, or some, very few. But what is it about 2017 tax year filing that we need to know? Any changes from the previous year?
Well, one good change on medical bills. Everything's going topsy-turvy next year. So you have to do planning this year. Obviously, 17 is in the books already. So you can't, unless you had a time machine, you can't go back and change it. But something like medical expenses, they were subject to a 10% limit to go into effect for 2017, but the new tax law went retroactively on that one provision, which was interesting. So now it's back to 7.5%. And what that means is more of your medical deductions will be deductible for 17 and 18. But due to all the gimmicks in the tax law, all these budgetary tricks they did, it goes back to 10% in 19. So now we're in 18. We have to span 3 years of planning. I would try and bunch what you can in this year before the threshold goes up next year, and less of your medical will be deductible.
So I should get my long-awaited nose job for 2018, put that in the books?
Yep, elective surgery.
Okay, let me ask you a question about the medical bills. Do you have to be an itemizer to take that?
Yes.
So you still are subject to that. So if you don't itemize, it doesn't matter.
Right. But remember, this year, many more people are itemizing. When I say this year, when you talk to any tax person, this year means last year.
Right.
So we're in 2018. But when I say this year, I mean this year's taxes, 2017, that we're working on now. So for 2017 taxes, the people who itemized in the past will probably itemize again, but that may not be true for next year's taxes, meaning 18.
Okay. We are not doing April 15th. We're doing April 17th because of the Fakakta Emancipation Day, which I find to be a silly thing. And also, I read on the IRS website that the Earned Income Tax Credit, if you're due a refund, you are going to get it later. Why is that?
I don't know. You know, they're so buried trying to implement. They're trying to create withholding tables, still based on the new law for employees. And I would be careful too. If you're getting a salary check, I might stick with the existing withholding tables, because the last thing you want is to have less withheld, thinking you may be getting a tax cut, you may be paying less. But what if, especially in the New York area, for example, in high tax states, you're not getting the deductions you're counting on? The last thing you want is to owe money. So I might be a little careful with those withholding tables.
Okay. So besides the date, besides the medical bills and the new withholding, what else do we need to know as we sit down to attack our taxes right now?
Well, it depends how you pay taxes. We just talked about employees. They pay taxes through withholding, so that's one area to be careful. But a lot of investors, a lot of people listening here do, or people taking required minimum distributions from IRAs where money is not withheld, they're subject to paying estimated taxes. Again, I would take the safe move and estimate based on last year. You can never get a penalty as long as you paid in at least last year's tax. So I would err, if I had to, more conservatively, that you don't come up short, because it's very hard to estimate for next year being 18 taxes because you're comparing apples and oranges, two different tax systems now.
And so essentially, though, I mean, even if you are in one of those high tax states, coastal states, with
Right.
And you're going to lose some of your deductions, if you pay just 100% of what you paid in 17 in 18 as your estimates,
Right.
you're safe.
As long as your income is not over $150,000, then there's 110% rule.
Okay, so 110% of your taxes. We'll get back to our interview with Ed Slott when we return. Remember, if you want to check out some of Ed's stuff, go to IRAHelp.com. This is Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, head over to JillOnMoney.com. Lots of ways to contact us. You'll find it all there. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It is tax time. Mark, are your taxes in? Done? All set. Okay. I sent mine in to my fabulous CPA team. I hope they're not listening. Hoping that they do everything they're supposed to do, which I'm sure they will. I've always feel like tax time is that moment where you're sort of, I mean, it stinks to do it, but don't you feel quite virtuous once you've done it? You know what I mean? Like having done it. It's like cleaning your house. You hate doing it, but once you've done it, you feel so good. It is a little bit of spring cleaning. We'll do some spring cleaning for your finances. Someone asked me if I could write an article about something. I'm like, how about spring cleaning for your finances? They're like, oh, we did that last year. I'm like, I know. We do it every year. Get it? Spring cleaning. We do it every year. Oh, brother. Okay, but if you have not done your taxes yet, we've got a great treat for you. We've got Ed Slott, who is an IRA expert and a CPA. His website is IRAHelp.com, and his favorite topic of all is the Roth IRA and what you need to know about it. So here is more of our interview with Ed Slott. When you're looking ahead at the tax law, we've been getting a bunch of questions. There's some folks who are dropping down into this big fat tax bracket. I love this one. This one, the 24%, 165 to 315.
Yeah.
Now, we got a call recently of somebody who said, well, that's like a massive range. I stay in it. Is this the year that people should really start to reconsider their Roth?
Great point.
So I want to make it a backdoor, or I want to say, I just want to convert. Let's go. Talk to me about the Roth.
All right. I want to talk about the Roth because there are changes. The Roth conversion, I'm a big Roth fan. You know why? Because I like tax-free. You know how when financial advisors always tell you, well, probably, maybe, they're always wishy-washy. Yeah, could be, depends on. There are certain always rules. At least I have certain non-negotiable rules. Tax-free is always better.
Than anything.
Right. So that's always. And that's why I'm a big Roth fan, because I'd rather know for sure that in retirement, everything I have will be tax-free. And it removes the uncertainty of what future higher taxes, especially when the bill for this new tax bill comes due, could do to your retirement savings.
Mm-hmm.
So rates are rock bottom. Here's another always rule. Always pay taxes at the lowest rates. Mm-hmm. But that's like saying always buy low and sell high. That's a good one, too.
Yeah. Let me try that one.
Yeah. That's the core of good tax planning, to pay at the lowest rates. Right now, historically, I think rates have hit rock bottom.
Wait a minute. Right now, let's just say that again for everyone listening. tax rates.
The tax rates, I can't see them ever. Look what they had to do to get them down to this level. And for those people that think tax rates are high, think back in the 70s and 80s when the top rate was over 90%. Then it went down to 70%. And then in the 80s, it dropped down to 50%. And the whole country did a happy dance because it was the first time in our lifetimes we were equal partners with Uncle Sam on our own money. And we thought that was fantastic.
Right.
Now we're down a top rate, and you would only hit that, a married couple over 600,000, 37%. So now you're talking about that big range, the 24%. Now is the time to strike.
Okay.
So back to Roth conversions. If you could get money into tax-free territory when tax rates are on bargain basement sale prices, now's the time to do it. But be careful.
Okay.
Because one of the things that came out of the tax law is the repeal of the ability to undo a Roth conversion. So while I'm a big Roth fan, a big tax-free fan, and I think everybody eventually should have tax-free retirement money by moving it to a Roth, once you convert, you owe the tax bill. There's no going back. So here's my advice. I still like the Roth conversion, but I would wait till after Thanksgiving to do it. Why? Because this way you'll have a better picture of your ability to pay the tax, what your own personal tax situation might be. Most of the numbers will be in by then, and a good idea of market values. While it's a good move, be careful, and I would not do this without getting professional tax or financial planning advice so you know what the bill will be, but it's still a great move.
All right.
Now, the other thing you mentioned, the backdoor Roth.
Yep.
Now, not everybody, it's interesting in the tax law. You wonder how these things come to be.
Yeah.
There is no income limit on who can convert. If you had $1 billion, you can convert it.
But that gets added to your taxable income.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But low rates. But let's say, but the funny part about the tax code, or the illogical part, to convert, and that's where all the big money is. People can convert tens, hundreds of thousands. There's no income limit. But if you want to make a $5,500 contribution, that's where they draw the line.
Yeah, right.
Now there's income limits.
Okay.
So not everybody can make a Roth contribution. So we're talking about two different flavors of Roths. The conversions, which we just talked about, and the contributions, which are limited to only $5,500 a year unless you're 50 or over, $6,500. So if you're over those limits, and for 2018, they're high limits. For example, if you're married joint and your income is under $189,000, you can do the full Roth, and if you're single, under $120,000, you can do the full Roth.
Okay.
But let's say your income is above that, you can't do the $5,500 or $6,500 Roth. There's something that's been called, it's not in the tax code. They would never call it that in the tax code.
The first time I ever heard about it was from you.
Right, the backdoor Roth. So because there's no income limits on traditional IRAs, that you could actually contribute to a traditional IRA, a non-deductible one, and then convert that to a Roth. Some people in the years past were skeptical if this workaround was even legal. I'm here to tell you it's absolutely legal.
Has it been challenged?
It doesn't have to be, because in the conference committee reports to the new tax law, although this is not in the new tax law, they mentioned 4 times that this is absolutely legal and doable.
Okay. So no income limit. I put money into my traditional IRA, and then when do I actually...
But not everybody can do it, because the traditional IRA has other restrictions. For example, you cannot make a contribution to a traditional IRA if you're over 70 and a half.
Okay.
So this doesn't work for people over 70 and a half.
So
and you still have to have the earnings.
Okay. So you have no income limit. You have to be under 70 and a half. You have to earned income, not passive income.
Right.
Now, presuming I get that and I don't qualify for a Roth, I put my money into a non-deductible IRA.
Right.
At what point do I have to then convert it into a Roth?
You could do it the next second.
Okay.
We used to say give it a waiting period because the law wasn't clear. Now we don't have to even wait. Somebody had asked me, when are we going to wait for IRS to rule on it? They don't have to. They only rule when Congress's intent is not clear. Their intent is clear now.
Why is there so much craziness around? If there is this workaround, why not just open up the Roth to everybody?
Right, well, that's my point. That you can convert hundreds of thousands, if not millions, without any of this. But if you want to make a $5,500 contract, I don't don't know.
Okay, and there's also this other permutation of like a care factor that we need to think about. And that is if you have an existing IRA account, right? And you want to do a backdoor Roth. Explain what happens then.
All right. If you have an existing, I hate to throw this at you, but
why not?
If you have,
I asked for it, baby.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
If you have an existing Roth IRA, if you have an existing traditional IRA, now you make this contribution non-deductible, and you want to convert it to the Roth, a good part of that may be taxable. Let's start from ground zero. If you don't have an existing traditional IRA and you just make this non-deductible contribution, you can convert it tax-free.
Easy.
Right. But if you have existing IRA balances, there's something called a pro rata rule, which means there's a percentage of each dollar you convert that will be taxable and tax-free. How much is tax-free? You have to go through your IRA now and see the amount of your non-deductible or after-tax money in your IRA over the balance in all of your IRAs, including SEP and simple IRAs. It's a little calculation. If you have a good tax preparer, the software does it automatically, and you report that on Form 8606 with your taxes.
All right, we'll get back to our interview with Ed Slott in just a minute. Are you wondering what you need to know about the rest of your financial life? Hop on to JillOnMoney.com. There you will find stuff that we've written, recorded, and also latest TV segments. So check it out, JillOnMoney.com. Or you can send us an email, askjill@jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back with Jill on Money. Mark reminded me that I forgot to tell you that it's time to subscribe to our newsletter. Mark is compiling this every week. And what are you doing, Mark, on Fridays? You're putting it out. And it's you get 5 in case you missed it kind of snippets. So it can be articles that we've written or come across. It could be videos. It could be segments, maybe a podcast here or there, or maybe a podcast segment, or maybe it's an amazing question that someone actually sent to us and we answer it. Whatever. Let's do that. That's a darn good idea. A timely one, Mark. You know? Anyway, check it out. The Jill on Money newsletter. Are we just calling it the Jill on Money newsletter? The Financial 5. All right. Right now, it's back to tax time. Ed Slott, he is an IRA expert. He's a CPA, and he's got some special information for those of you who have side gigs, self-employed, anything like that. Self-employed, pay attention. This segment is dedicated to you. We have a ton of listeners who are self-employed.
Yeah.
And they have, or they've got some side hustles, little gig stuff. It would seem to me that this whole pass-through thing is a nightmare.
Yeah,
it is a hellish nightmare.
I was hoping you weren't going to say those words.
I know, hellish nightmare. And the reason
not the pass-through.
Not the pass-through. So without going too deep into the weeds on this, the general concept that we had been operating under is that you've got a pass-through entity. A pass-through, it's whether you're a sole proprietor, you make some money, you've got a LLC, you've got an S-corp, whatever that thing is, it passes through that entity. It's now taxable to you at whatever your personal tax rate is. Okay. So that seems easy because that was sort of how it was.
And your personal tax rate could be lower this year anyway.
Right. So then we find out that I guess because the corporate tax rate went from 35 to 21%, that people said, wow, what about me?
Even the people teaching this, CPAs and tax courses that CPAs go to, they're not sure about how it's going to play out. But the general rule is if you're an employee, You can't make you could, but it won't work if you try and make yourself an independent contractor and say, now give me the tax break, this 20% reduction, because you're doing the work. It's almost like an anti-worker thing. If you were managing 20 people, then you might get that break, but you'd still have to be under certain income limits.
So I'll give you a good example. Let's say that I'm a CPA.
Yeah.
And I have an LLC, Jill Schlesinger, CPA, and it's an LLC. I am a single. I work out of my house. I do
won't
taxes.
get it because you're personally involved. You're actually getting your hands dirty.
Yes, I'm doing all the work.
And right. See, that's what gets me about this. It's almost like an anti-worker thing. The harder you work, the less the benefit.
Okay, so what happens under the new rules for? I'm going to give you basic. I make $500,000 a year as a CPA.
You're out. Yeah.
At all, I get nothing. Like what?
Right. No,
zero?
The income limits are I forget what they are, but
I think 315 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so if you're above that, you don't even get. You don't get.
As far as I understand, you don't get it.
Because it goes back to zero. In other words, many of the tax
it's not
breaks
that you don't get the 20% reduction. That's what we're talking about.
Okay. So what do you get?
You still pay at your personal rate.
You just pay at your personal rate, but you don't get the big drop.
Right.
Now compare that.
Unless you were, remember, this was meant for the big corporations who are generally C corporations that get the benefit. And the big mistake I think people are going to make that see this, they're going to go to their accountant, but most accountants know not to do this, and say, make me a C corporation. You don't want that because you still have to get the money out.
Yeah.
You're still subject to a possible double tax. That's a trap.
Which is the whole point of being a pass-through.
Right.
Right? Okay. So if I am a CPA and I'm doing the work, and then I have 10 people working for me, and I don't do the work anymore.
Well, then, okay, yeah, if you're running an entity.
Yeah, I'm running the organization.
Right, but again, the way I understand it, and it's a little ambiguous still, and even the tax writers are trying to come up with some rules that people can understand. Mm-hmm. It appears you don't get it if your income is still over those levels.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I've let's do a fun exercise. Let's say that there's a person who, because I understand that there's exemptions for engineers and architects for some, whatever. Okay.
Anything to do with real estate.
Exactly. You went. Let's just say that you're somebody who creates content, like a podcast person, like someone who might look like the person you're sitting across from. And let's just say that I claim I am doing the work. However, I'm a manufacturer. I am a I manufacture content.
You just hit the magic word.
So what I'm going to call myself now is a content manufacturer. What do you think?
Then I think
you think that's aggressive, though.
Yeah, but again, this is going to lead. I heard somebody use this phrase, a CPA of all things, an orgy of tax avoidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and as it should, because it's silly the way it's written. It's completely silly. Yeah. Okay, for those who are self-employed, you can still put money away into your retirement account. It's a great way to reduce your taxable income.
But even there's less of a benefit because rates are generally lower. That's why if you could do anything, do the Roth. While rates are lower, putting into tax-free vehicles are better because even with your 401k, if you're a worker, the deduction you're getting for the 401k is not worth as much as what you may be paying on the back end. So I tell everybody, if you can, lose the deduction, give it up because it's not worth as much when rates are low, and go with a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k at work and build a tax-free savings account.
I love that. We always get the question about should I do the Roth and not, and I quote Ed Slott, and I say, hey, you know what? You make too much money to open up a Roth. Use the Roth 401k because there's no income restriction on that, right? Let me just get back to because I know we have small business owners who listen, and we get a lot of these questions. So,
but even with the small business owner, first fill up your own Roth. You can still do $5,500. Most people don't even fill the $5,500. That's a gimme unless they're over the income limits.
Right.
But a lot of small businesses aren't.
Exactly. We'll get right back to our interview with Ed Slott in just a minute. If you've got a financial question, shoot us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We will be right back.
Have a finance question? There are many ways to reach the show. You can call anytime at 855-411-JILL, send an email to askjill@jillonmoney.com, or tweet a question on Twitter using the handle @JillOnMoney. Just use the hashtag AskJill.
All right, you are back with Jill on Money, and we are talking taxes this weekend. This is like high period for tax filings. I think that last week and the weekend ahead of us, the two busiest weeks for submissions. And remember, you should get your refund pretty quickly, within 21 days, according to the IRS. The IRS says that about 90% of people will get refunds. No, sorry, 70% of 70% of taxpayers will get refunds. The average refund was about $2,900 last year, so that's a big number. Anyway, let's do this. Right back to our interview with Ed Slott.
If you're a worker, an employee, you get nothing. It's all fully taxable income. You can't deduct your work-related expenses. I had the mailman come into our office when this was going on, and he says, I hear it's pretty good. And I told him all the things you don't. He said, what about my union dues? No, that's out. What about my uniforms? What about my travel? What about my work? All out, because he's an employee. That section of the tax return repealed. So for workers, they pay through the nose. It's all pure income without those big work-related deductions. If you had unreimbursed employee business expenses where you're traveling around, people sometimes have thousands in deductions there because they're not reimbursed. That's all out. So that's the lowest level of who doesn't benefit other than the general benefit of the rates. Then you go up one notch from there, the self-employed person, where if they have a business entity, like the pastor or whatever their entity is, they do get those business-related deductions. And then you have the level up from that self-employed person to the person you were talking about, the manufacturing, the bigger entity that can get maybe that pass-through tax break.
Right.
And then you have the big corps that get the huge breaks. And then you have the people, the investors that get the capital gains breaks because those rates are the same. But, for example, on long-term capital gains, a married couple could have up to $77,000 of long-term capital gains. And you know what rate they pay? Zero. And then you have the people at the very top who benefit most. So we went from the people who do the most work. Now we're up to the investors who, I don't want to say don't do work, but it's passive income. It's not labor work.
And we used to make a distinguishing decision between capital and labor.
Right.
And it was definitely... It was clear, and now it seems to have been
muddy,
flipped.
but it's still the bigger benefits are the capital. So for the stock, if you're collecting interest and dividends, you're almost at the top of this hierarchy. But there's one group that's at the very top.
Real estate.
No, well, that too. People that don't do any work at all. Heirs. People who inherit, it's all free.
I mean,
well, not all. For a married couple,
22.
up to $22.4 million, which covers 99.99% of the people. So if you inherit and do nothing, no work at all, they not only get free estate tax, but unlimited step-up in basis. So
I don't get that. I don't get that.
They get it all. So if you're at the top of the hierarchy, and those are the people that don't have to do anything but collect, it's all free.
Ed, the best thing about the new tax system and the worst thing?
All right. The best thing are the low rates, the high standard deduction, the simplicity. There is some simplicity. Got to give them that, because most people will be taking the standard deduction of $24,000 a couple, $12,000 singles, because most people just don't have that much in deductions. They won't have to do as much record keeping. I just talked before about the employees that, we told them, keep your receipts every time you met a client here and went there, or not client because you're a worker, but you had to go here, you're a salesman here, your union dues, work-related, all that's out. So it's out, but it's being replaced with a bigger standard deduction. Hopefully that's enough for you. If it's not, then you're still behind the eight ball, and people say, I'd rather have it complicated and more deductions.
All right. So
but it is simplified in that respect.
So the worst part of the new tax plan?
Well, if you have a lot of kids that are over 17, you don't get the exemptions anymore. There is a child credit, but under 17, and that's a pretty good credit, $2,000 credit, of which $1,400 is refundable. There's some people in high tax states that may be paying more.
How do you feel about that?
Well, some people say, people in New York, a high-tax state, when it was being called tax reform, they said, no, it's tax revenge.
Well, it does feel that way, and I just want to point out something that's interesting. The reason why I said, how do you feel about that, is an anchor on a radio station in Texas said to me, well, why should I, as a citizen of the United States...
Well, now I'm a New York resident, so you're going to get me.
So I want to hear. I'm a taxpayer of the United States. Why should I have to pay for the fact that your state is poorly run? Can you please hold up? Wait a second. Now, everybody, listen up here. Here's what you say to your friends in low tax and no tax states. Go, Ed.
Because New York, my state, now you may be in a state like California, that's the same thing, is something called a donor state. A lot of our taxes go to states like Texas, like Florida, that have no state tax because they need money.
Ed Slott, thank you so much. If you would like more on IRAs, taxes, and all things Ed, go to IRAHelp.com. IRAHelp.com. Ed, thanks for taking time out of your very busy day, bringing your delightful daughter, who's not a CPA, but I think that maybe she's learned from the best. She doesn't have to be.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much to Ed Slott. His website is IRAHelp.com, and we will link to that in our show notes. If you missed any part of the interview, just go to JillOnMoney.com, click on the Listen tab, and you can hear what we had to say before you tuned in. Next, we will finish the show with one of your questions. We'll be right back. You're back with Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, give us a holler. Best way to do it is to email us, actually. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We've been getting so many calls that, like, the voicemail box gets filled up. So just email us. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That's what Joe did, who's got $50 a week to invest towards retirement. He's 58. He says, I have a couple of IRAs with Fidelity, but I'd like to do a separate electronic funds transfer to another account that's set up for $50 a week. Why? Why? Why are you making yourself crazy like that? Put it in your existing IRA. Don't complicate things. Can you please, all caps, give me some recommendations for index funds with all caps Dow stocks, or another idea you might have for me? I know nothing and I have nothing. Thank you for your time. Well, don't worry about Dow stocks. Just buy if you really just want to buy an index fund, buy an S&P 500 index fund. That's one idea. Or you can do Fidelity has an extended market index, I think. Don't they, Mark? I think there's an extended market index. And but don't open another IRA account. You have an account. People, keep our lives nice and simple. Let's not complicate things. Okay? Just pick a plain old index fund, throw it in your IRA account, put your $50 in there. And by the way, I think it also makes sense because you've probably already met the minimum for that account. So that's very helpful for you. Okay? John wants to know, he's a high-income earner. He wants to plan for retirement. He cannot do a Roth IRA. Should he do a backdoor Roth or just mutual funds? Well, a backdoor Roth is great because, you will already tax the money will already be taxed. So you put money into a traditional IRA. You don't take a tax deduction, and then you convert it into a Roth IRA immediately. I think that's probably a better way to go, especially even if you're a high-income earner. As you will see when you do your taxes next year, your rate still may be low, relatively speaking. So try a backdoor Roth. Give it a shot. Okay, that's it. That's the program. Thank you so much for listening. And if you've got a financial question you want to get on the air with us, send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And if you'd like to subscribe to our newsletter, go over to the website, JillOnMoney.com. Thanks to Ed Slott. He's great as always. And we will see you next week.